Hi everyone! Wow, I did not mean for it to be so long before uploading a video again. Um, Gosh, where do I even start? I mean, I always say like sorry, but I feel like people know that everyone who makes videos also has other things going on in their life. I kept on wanting to put something else up, but I have been running out of storage space on my computer, so I need to get some sort of external storage thing thing and um or like go through things on my computer and delete things or whatever. Yeah, so that's one of the reasons. Also, just as usual, for anyone new here, every month to 2 months I just like stop uploading, I feel like, and I've been trying to be more consistent with things and like not let myself just disappear for a little bit, but it usually happens every month to 2 months when I have like an influx of assignments and things to do for school, so that's part of the reason as well. um yeah, but this is just like a quick video. Okay, quick, it's probably not going to be that quick, but this is just a video that I can record right now and then upload to YouTube and just use the YouTube editor to cut out parts that I don't like or that I messed up and not have any like editing, so I don't have to worry about putting it on my computer and then exporting it after editing using the editing software that I have. So I also didn't mean to have like three bookish videos, one right after the other. I like it when things are random, so I feel like things are kind of in chunks right now when you look at my uploads, but that's just the way it's going to be right now. These are my issues mostly. I'm pretty sure you probably don't care. Which brings me to, I mean, I kept saying, if you're new here, because there are quite a few new people here, whether it's just people who have discovered my channel in some way, but also I did a sort of interview conversation with Daisuke, which I will link in the description and in the card if you want to check that out. We talk about books and movies and music, so the things that I talk about on my channel pretty much. Even though his content is mostly like film related, he made sure to expand the questions that have to do with, my interests. Although I know that he like reads and stuff too. Anyway, in this video, I am going to talk about a handful of books that I've read recently and finished, and then what I'm currently reading and what I have planned for October. I'm usually not like a TBR person, but I do have specific plans and goals for this month, so I thought I would share them. And also, like the last video that I made, I'm pretty sure was the I just feel like reading all of my books right now kind of video, and I didn't end up reading most of those books because they're still like all on my immediate TBR list. However, because I got sort of sidetracked with school stuff, I only read like a couple of those books that I mentioned, and I was literally just like, "Hey, I bought this recently. I might as well mention it." It was like a sort of immediate TBR or like books that I want to read soon kind of video, but also kind of a book haul as well, which by the way, I keep buying books. Oh my god, it's not a problem yet because I've been babysitting a lot and using that money towards books, but like I don't really need more books. I just want them. Oh, did I even mention I wanted to say like thank you? Thank you to people who have subscribed to my channel and watched my videos and commented and all that stuff. I didn't mean to just like shout out a video that I did with Daisuke. I meant to like thank the new subscribers. Okay, let's actually get started though. And first, I have this piece of paper here to go over the books. I only have one book physically that I read recently, and the rest are all audiobook. Actually, I listened to all four of these books on audiobook. And then, but I have one physically now. So, the first book, or like the least recent book that I've finished, was Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid, and yeah, this was an audiobook. I think of this as like a 3.5 out of 5 stars, but on Goodreads I rounded up to a 4 out of 5. I rounded up to a 4 out of 5 because of the audiobook. It has a full cast of characters and like actors who play each character, which I really like, and it also just matches the style of the way that the book is told. So Daisy Jones and the Six is about this band called Daisy Jones and the Six, and they were like the biggest band in like for a few years in the 70s. And it's from like today's perspective, and the members and other people who were involved in the making of the band, you know, like the making of the band and their music, like the managers and producers and such, they're being interviewed about the success and popularity of the band and their eventual disbandment. So I really liked having the full cast. One critique I have of it, though, is that the guys were like really hard to differentiate. They had similar voices, and then I was like, who was talking? But most of the time they would say like the character's name before they started getting into whatever story they were telling or whatever. Yeah, and I enjoy this, but at the same time, I don't know, I feel like critiquing it is going to make it seem like I didn't like it very much, but I just felt like something was missing. This is actually really similar to something that I would like I thought that I would like it, and I did. I just am not super attached to it. It kind of gives me this mix of like Factory Girl because of the in some sort of art scene and the drugs, and Factory Girl is a film, by the way, and a mix of like that and Valley of the Dolls because of like the drugs and wanting to succeed in a specific industry. And what was the other thing? I'm trying to think of like my Goodreads review right now. It gets a lot of comparisons to Almost Famous, which I totally get, and that makes me more... Oh, and The Dirt. That was the other thing that I was going to mention. It's sort of a mix between like Factory Girl, Valley of the Dolls, and The Dirt, which I haven't read or seen, but I had to throw something in there that actually had to do with music and a band. It gets a lot of comparisons to Almost Famous because it's surrounding a band, but I feel like Almost Famous, I don't know, I love Almost Famous, so comparing it to one of my favorite movies is risky, because if you love Almost Famous, you may have like too high of expectations going into this kind of book, but that makes me really excited for the adaptation that's in the works. I don't know where they are in terms of production, but the cast has been announced, and Riley Keough is going to play Daisy, and I feel like that's great casting. I'm really happy about that. I feel like that's just the kind of character that she would play, and I really like her as an actress anyway. And I am just looking forward to actually having music, because that's where I felt like things were missing. It seemed like a spark was missing because I wasn't able to have a connection with the band, and there wasn't like real music that I could listen to. It was all just through the book. I couldn't have anything outside of the book because it's not a real band. So I can't wait for like the music to actually exist and to be able to see these characters like come to life more. And I also think that the stories will be like stories, the stories that they tell through the audiobook, and like obviously through the book physically. If you have the book physically, I don't. I do recommend the audiobook though, because of the way that it is this sort of like interview style, but I can't say anything for the setup of the book because I don't have it, and I haven't seen what it looks like in terms of the format and the setup because of the way that it is this interview style. But something that I didn't like so much about the way that it was told, which I feel like couldn't be avoided, is just the way that I felt like there was too much foreshadowing. This made me think of another book that... Oh my god, where did I put it? It's like behind other books. Oh no, wait, I moved it. So this is like a really random comparison, but I have this book that I had to read in my honors US history class my freshman year of high school called Fortunate Son. It's an autobiography, by Lewis B. Puller Jr. Oh, it's spelled like that. I have to fix that because I did mention this book in my Goodreads review. This is about Lewis B. Puller Jr., who was in the Vietnam War, and did he actually I feel like he didn't step on the landmine, but he was involved in an explosion in the Vietnam War, and as you can see here, he lost most of his bottom half of his legs, and part of his arm, or like hand there, right there. Yeah, and I felt like when I read this, he was being too clear almost. Like, he ended every chapter being like, and I had one too many drinks that night, and I continued drinking, or like, and I woke up the next morning hungover, like all these things that like made it seem like, I'm like, guys, this guy's an alcoholic. And then like later in the book, he was going to AA meetings. And I just feel like seeing that in words, or like hearing those words, makes it too obvious, and you're like, this is clearly foreshadowing. But I feel like that's the kind of thing that the visualization of in an adaptation can go like under the radar in a way. Like, you can have like one of the characters in particular deals with drug issues and addiction and drinking, and that's something that you can have him like sort of doing in the corner, like in the background, while something else is at the forefront of the scene. So I feel like hopefully they don't make that too obvious, because I don't know, I just have a problem with it when it just seems like really evident, and you're like, I get it, okay? Also, I can feel myself like doing that thing where I like don't know when to take breaths in the middle of my sentences, or I'm like not letting enough air out when I'm actually speaking, but I keep inhaling, and you can see me like start to go like that. So sorry about that. Clearly you can tell I haven't actually filmed a video like this in a while, if that's happening. So then the next book that I have to talk about is The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde by Robert Louis Stevenson. That's how I've heard it be pronounced, instead of Robert Louis Stevenson. I ended up buying this vintage old copy that I very much like, and I'll get kind of closer. See? Lovely. Okay, and this has other stories in it too, but I only read Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, which at first I just listened to on audiobook, and then I bought this copy. I really loved this. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. It was so short, and I feel like I wanted more from it, and that's ultimately why my rating is a little bit lower than like a 5 out of 5, but it felt like really like home, I guess, for me, really homey, because Victorian literature, specifically Gothic literature, is something that I got into at a younger age, like on my own, not just for like things that I had to read for school. So it just like gave me this home familiar feeling that I really liked. And it kind of does that thing that other works that were published around the same time do, where it's kind of layered and from multiple perspectives, and almost similar to the way that Frankenstein has the like stories within a story, or like letters within letters kind of situation. And the last section is this explanation and detailed account from Dr. Jekyll, and I just wish that was most of the book. I mean, it was a pretty good chunk of the short novella that it is, but I just wanted that to be longer, and I wanted more experiments and more like scientific stuff. And as much as I loved what was there, I wanted there to be additional things. So I really recommend it though, especially for this time of year. And I haven't really heard anything else about other stories by this author, so I'll have to read them and see what they're like. And then I also listened to The Devil All the Time by Donald Ray Pollock, whose name I can never remember. This was interesting, and my experience with it is interesting, I guess. I kind of hate using that word, but I use it all the time. It's such like a non-descriptive word. But I forget who the narrator is, but he did a good job. He had like distinctive voices for multiple characters, and that can be hard, I feel like, when there's quite a big cast of characters and you're just one person, but he did a really good job of having the distinguished voices. So The Devil All the Time, I realized, by the way, that I didn't really talk about what Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde is about, but I think that's something that pop culture has kind of spoiled for most people. That's the other thing, is that I wish that the reveal and information about the novella like wasn't so well known. It would have been so much better, but I mean, you can't help it nowadays, I feel like. So, anyway, The Devil All the Time is about, gosh, it's kind of hard to describe, but it basically has to do with a cast of characters that are all like from the same town, I'm pretty sure, even though there are other areas that the book like takes place in. And it's following these characters over a period of time, and just how evil and how like the devil's work, or something, you know, what, however you want to phrase it, is part of their life. So hence the title, The Devil All the Time. It's all these characters sort of like dealing with being sinners, I guess. I'm not really sure how much religion has to do with it. I'm not a religious person personally, so I don't know if that maybe people who are religious may get more out of this book or maybe hate it. I'd have to look at, now I kind of want to look at reviews that are from more religious people. It had my attention in the beginning as situations and characters were being introduced, but as it went on, I like quickly lost interest, and then like 70 to 75% of the way through the audiobook, I suddenly went from being indifferent to like crying over this one character. Specifically Lenora, like her storyline suddenly just like really got me engaged in the story again, and yeah, I cried. I went from like not caring to crying. So watch out, I guess. This also deals with like so many issues. To me, yeah, there's probably, people may find it gory. I didn't really find it gory, but I mean, there's violence involved and killings, so blood is mentioned, I'm quite sure, and it's also just like really inappropriate. Oh my god, wait, I remember now. I was thinking about listening to it while I was like baking or cooking downstairs, and then I was like, no. When I got to a certain part, I was like, I can't listen to this in front of people, because I usually will just like play it from my phone when I'm in the kitchen instead of like using any sort of like headphones or anything like that. Definitely not a good idea to listen to this with other people around, because there's also quite a number of like sexual encounters and explicit I'm having a hard time like describing it, but yeah, explicit situations. So after this part with Lenora, I definitely was more engaged in the story and more interested in, and specifically like Arvin, this who was the character who was the little boy in the beginning, and then you kind of follow him as he gets older. He was kind of the main character towards the end, as other characters kind of like dropped off in a way. Or at least that's how I'm gonna describe it. And not saying that they all just like died, but like they slowly started like becoming less a part of the story. And I was interested in seeing where Arvin's stories went in the end. But that still like can't make up for me being disinterested for a majority of the book. So I ended up giving it a 3 out of 5 stars on Goodreads, and definitely at least half a star of that is because of how well the narrator did. So I thought it was okay, and I like the idea that it has with these characters who are connected in different ways and like following certain themes that are integrated into these people's lives, but just, I guess the execution wasn't really my thing. So, I have not watched the Netflix movie yet, but it is on my watch list. So, then the last book that I have to talk about that I've read and finished was The Lodger, A Tale of the London Fog by Marie Bellick Londes. I think Lowndes. But this is a story based on Jack the Ripper, and this is the source material for the Alfred Hitchcock film, one of his first films. I think it's like his 3rd feature film, maybe? That could be wrong, but I know that it's one of his early works, and it's on the Criterion Collection. And I did end up watching The Lodger kind of like in the middle of the book, because I was listening to it on audiobook, but then a group of friends and I do this movie marathon like every month or so. It's pretty much been every month, and The Lodger ended up being one of the movies that we decided to watch for our most recent marathon, and I found the audiobook on Audible for they've been doing this like included thing now, which I very much like, especially because there are so many classics that you can really just listen to for free. Oh my gosh. Anyone who uses like a service that you're paying for the audiobooks, always look into classics on like YouTube or LibriVox or something, because if it's in the public domain, you shouldn't have to be paying for an audiobook of it. When I saw it on Audible, I was like, ooh, I'm gonna listen to this before we watch it for the movie marathon that I was having with my friends. I started it like the day before the marathon and thought I was going to be able to finish it, and I didn't finish it. So the movie marathon ended up happening, and we had a hard time this time around because our theme this month, or like this past month, was silent films, and it was really hard to like have conversations because while we're watching the movies, we're like talking to each other through a messaging app, and it was really hard to pay attention to what was happening because with silent films you have to like read the title cards, and if you look away you don't know what's happening at all. It's not like you can hear anything that can give you context with what's going on in the scene if your eyes aren't on it. So it was really difficult, but I feel like that kind of made, I don't know, because I wasn't paying as much attention to The Lodger, it made it seem like it wasn't a very good movie, but I feel like rewatching it now that I've read the book and I can pay full attention to it, it will be a much better experience. Did I explain that all right? I'm not sure. But that's what happened. And the book still was kind of like, what's happening? Because it's called The Lodger. And I understand that he's supposed to be this like mysterious character, but still, like, having read the book, he's really elusive. Even though I've read the book, I just feel like maybe that shouldn't be the case. And it's mostly about this older couple who have this lodger that they independently think is this murderer, obviously based on Jack the Ripper, like I mentioned previously. And specifically the wife, I don't really know what the husband was feeling, but specifically the wife like did not want him to be caught. And I was like, why is she so adamant about protecting him? Like, why does she not want him to be caught? I was very confused, especially because she was also, like, worried about her daughter's safety. And I'm like, but you think that your lodger is the killer. And you're not gonna, like, turn him in or anything? Or, like, mention it to the police? They're, like, friends with a police officer? And they're worried about their daughter? I was just, like, baffled by it. But it was still interesting, especially because that was a perspective that I wasn't expecting. Like, it mostly is from the perspective of this wife, who has the lodger, as a lodger. And, yeah, she I don't know, she just was kind of going crazy. I mean, that's so vague and such a not great way to describe it, but she was becoming really obsessive. There we go. Yeah, I ended up giving it a 3 out of 5 stars because there were moments that I was like less interested in. I feel like it was a little too long. Oh my god, I keep saying someone stop me. That's gonna bother me so much when I edit this. That's too bad. I'm not gonna have enough times to actually edit out every because the YouTube editor limits how many cuts you can make in a video. So hopefully I don't drag this out too much or have too many pauses. But now that I've gone through the books that I've finished reading, onto the TBR and books that I am currently in the middle of. So first I'm going to start off with 2 books that I have not started. Sorry, friends. The same group of people that I do these movie marathons with, one of the movies that we watched last month in September for our movie marathon was Nosferatu, which I love. So it was great rewatching that, but it made one of the people more interested in reading Dracula finally, because they were a little confused as to whether it was like Dracula or not, and I filled them in on that information that Nosferatu is Dracula, but F.W. Murnau did not get the rights to the book, so that's why it's called Nosferatu and why character names are changed and things like that. And there's that whole lawsuit from Bram Stoker's widow because it's Dracula. Anyway, then they just convinced me to like reread Dracula, and now we're all buddy reading or like group reading Dracula. So here we go. Thankfully I have already read this, so with our discussion and stuff, if I'm behind or something like that, which I am because I haven't started it yet, but I also have an audiobook that I can listen to or listen to while I'm reading along with it. I love Dracula. This is one of my favorite classics, and I'm excited to reread it though, because suddenly the way that, like, after watching Nosferatu and the way that everyone else was getting excited, there's only like six other people, but like still one person in particular was like, now I really want to read Dracula. And then they were like, yeah, let's all read Dracula. So we're all reading Dracula, and one person is almost done. Did she finish it? Maybe. It's been like a day. Yeah, like last night or / this morning, she was like, I'm almost done with it. We're like, what are you doing? She's like, I don't know, I just got really interested in it, which is really surprising because it is quite slow going. I'm curious how the pacing will be this second time around. Yeah, exciting. And I don't have to tell you what Dracula's about. Everyone kind of knows, and even if your ideas of Dracula are kind of off because of the difference of Dracula in pop culture and Dracula, the novel by Bram Stoker, I just feel like it's best just going into it the way it is. I do think that something, though, that I should mention that may be important is that it is an epistolary novel. I used to pronounce this word wrong, and now I'm questioning it. Epistolary, I'm pretty sure. So it's told in like letters and journal entries, which I know can be kind of like difficult for some people and like harder to get into. So just saying. And then I don't know how we got on it. Oh yes, I do, but I don't need to explain. We're also everyone except one person, we're also reading Rebecca, which will also be a reread for me. Oh my goodness. This was on my like to read list anyway. Starting in like September, I was like, all right, I have to make sure that I read Rebecca because the new adaptation is coming out on Netflix on October 21st. I want to finish reading this by October 21st so that I can watch Rebecca the day it goes on Netflix. But thankfully I have already read this, so discussing things in our group chat and stuff it's not going to be like spoilery, it's just going to be like a refresher, which is exactly why one of the reasons why I want to reread it. Another reason just being I want to experience it again and remember the book. And it's also one of my favorite books, so should be a good reading month, even if it's just like these I think I'm going to love all the books that I plan on reading this month. So, Dracula and Rebecca just are given 5 out of 5 stars. Yeah. So yes, Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. Rebecca is about the second Mrs. Maxim de Winter. De Winter, right? I always want to add an S. Yeah, it's just De Winter, no S at the end. And she is the second wife of Maxim de Winter, and she's sort of like haunted by the first wife named Rebecca, and she wants to live up to Rebecca and be the perfect wife for Maxim, and but she's also this very like shy, like she doesn't have much of a personality sort of character, so there's that as well, and it's just super atmospheric, which is something I'm looking forward to the most with rereading it. I also haven't started this one, but this one is much more fast-paced than Dracula, so I'm okay. I could start this on the 14th and just like read it within a week probably. So there was something else I was going to mention about Rebecca. Oh, I've heard a few people on BookTube because of the adaptation, more people want to read it or reread it. So I've heard a few people though mention that the haunting is actually a haunting and that there's ghosts, and that's not true. There's no ghosts in Rebecca. It's just like the memory of Rebecca is sort of haunting this character. She's unnamed, so she you don't get to learn her name. That's why I said the second Mrs. Maxim de Winter. There's not actual any ghosts. And the second Mrs. Maxim de Winter is being kind of tormented by the housekeeper, Mrs. Danvers, who I really want to pay attention to her character with this reread because of the sort of implication that she was in love with Rebecca that I feel like I didn't pick up on the first time. Granted, I was in high school, and just she's an interesting character, and I'm hoping this time around it's really gonna stick, because I mentioned before that I've seen the Hitchcock film so many times that I feel like that's really overwritten the details of the book. So, anyway, that was such a long explanation. And then three, all these books I'm in the middle of. I have an audiobook that I'm listening to, The Queen of the Damned by Anne Rice. This is the third book in the Vampire Chronicles. I'm loving the Vampire Chronicles. I actually started this over recently. I had been like 17% of the way through the audiobook, but I don't think I picked it up since like June, and that's just too long. And I feel like I was doing other things and focusing on those other things too much while I was listening to it, so I feel like I really need to take in that information that I already listened to, so I started it over, totally fine with it, and now I'm almost to the point where I was before, and I don't know, I read Interview with a Vampire in December, and then the Vampire Lestat in January, and then it's taking me forever to actually finish The Queen of the Damned, but I'm hoping I love it. I want to read all the books in the Vampire Chronicles, and I can't say too much about this one because it's the third in a series, but the first one, Interview with the Vampire, has to do with this vampire, Louis, who is being interviewed by an interviewer, and he's telling his life story of how he, a little bit before he became a vampire, what his life was like, and then becoming a vampire, and his, struggling with this, really, and his relationship with his sire. Is sire the right term in the Vampire Chronicles? Because you know how every sort of vampire story, whether it's a book series or a TV show or something, they always have specific words. Sometimes in True Blood it's their maker, but in I feel like it's maybe sire in this one, I don't know, but anyway, his sire is Lestat, and then they also make I don't know, they sire a, wow, okay, but they sire a very young child vampire, Claudia. That's what happens in Interview with the Vampire, but then the second book, The Vampire Lestat, follows Lestat and his origins, and then even further after Interview with the Vampire, and then now it's kind of continuing with that, in Queen of the Damned, and it has to do with Akasha. I'm sort of bad with names when I'm listening to an audiobook because I'm more of a visual learner, so if I'm not seeing the names, then I'm not gonna remember them as well. Akasha, I think, is this vampire queen. I'm pretty sure in the film adaptation of The Queen of the Damned, it's the character played by Alia, but I'm loving the series, and I hope I continue to love the books, and it's also just really interesting knowing, I've done some research, not a lot, but these books, specifically Interview with the Vampire, really influenced vampires in pop culture nowadays. I can't really get into that, but it's really interesting. It's so fascinating. Maybe that could be a separate video that I do. Possibly. Another book that I have started, let's see, I'm only 36 pages into it right now, but it is The Bird's Nest by Shirley Jackson. This is really interesting so far, and I know I keep using that word, but I'm not that far into it, so it's really the only word that I feel is accurate right now. I keep reading the back of it, but I'm not gonna read the back of it today. It's not gonna happen, okay? But I think I've read the back of this like twice so far. I know I did in my last video. I've actually started it this time. I've kind of lied, and I kept meaning to start it, and then I would get like a page or two. Literally didn't get past page 2 and was interrupted, and then got sidetracked with a bunch of things. Now I'm into it and I want to finish it. I'd like to finish it relatively soon as well, like pretty quickly within the next couple of days or so, because I'd like to finish it before I start Dracula, which is why I haven't started Dracula yet. But The Bird's Nest by Shirley Jackson, if you don't know, I read The Haunting of Hill House this past summer and loved it, and which I talk about in another video, by the way, so I'll link that in the description and in the card if you're interested. I'm pretty sure that's the video that I mostly talk about like adaptations in, but I do discuss the book. And then I reread We Have Always Lived in the Castle around the same time that I read The Haunting of Hill House, and really liked that as well. It was kind of similar feelings to the first time, but I really loved The Haunting of Hill House, and I realized how much I love Shirley Jackson's writing and the subtext of her storylines, so that's what I'm expecting going into this, loving the writing and a lot of things to analyze and look at. And so far, I've already noticed similarities between Elizabeth, who's the main character in this, Nell, or Eleanor, in The Haunting of Hill House, and Mary Cat in We Have Always Lived in the Castle. So I'm really interested in examining these three characters after I finish The Bird's Nest and comparing them, and I don't know, it's kind of a video idea already, or maybe just like writing something on it as of now, but I'm only 36 pages into it, so I don't know if that's something that will continue. And I also expect some similarities because they are, well, yeah, they're young adult female characters written by the same author, so I do expect there to be some similarities, but I still think they're like fleshed out each on their own so far. Like, you can tell them apart very well. Like, a sort of comparison that I just thought of is like, you know when you read John Green's books and it feels like you're just reading the same characters over and over again? Like, that is not the case here with Shirley Jackson's work, in my opinion. And this has to do, so far, I'm going to tell you what's happened so far, instead of reading the back like I have previously. So it is about Elizabeth Richmond, and she is kind of struggling with not sleeping well and not remembering things and having sudden outbursts. And also there have been a few scenes where she's been drunk but doesn't like remember drinking alcohol or anything. And she lives with her aunt. I can't remember what happened. Yeah, her mother died, and she lives with her aunt, and her aunt is really worried about her and telling her these things, and she keeps on sort of like spacing out. And I think that it's gonna have to do with dissociative identity disorder, which makes sense based on certain things that are the way that things are worded on the back here, but at the same time I don't really like the wording on the back if it is dissociative identity disorder. As intriguing as it is, which I get, it's just like the blurb thing that's on the back. Yeah. Okay, what I'm referencing, what I'm thinking about is the way it says, as a tormented Elizabeth becomes 2 people, then 3, then 4, each wilder and more wicked than the last. Like, it just makes it, I don't know, in a way it sort of implies that she's being different versions of Elizabeth, if that makes sense. I don't know. That's the way that I read it, in a way. Okay, maybe not. I don't know. No matter what, though, I'm still going to be a little wary with mental illness and the representation that this book may have of it. And, yeah, we'll just have to see. I'm only 36 pages into it. I keep saying that. But, I mean, technically, it's quite short, so it's around 250 pages. I just need to, she's seeing a doctor. That's what's happening so far, is that she's seeing experts. And then finally, oh my goodness gracious, it's happening this month, you guys. Ladies and gentlemen, The Dream Thieves. It's happening this month, okay? So this is a book that I started like 2 years ago. stupid. Yeah, I started it back in 2018, but if you don't know, this is another thing I've said literally 100 times, but 2019 was not a reading year for me. I actually looked back at my reading, at my Goodreads, like reading goal and like what I read last year. I read 6 books, 4 of them were audiobooks, and 2 of them were like volumes of a comic series that I read online. So 0 physical books happened last year. That's so sad. But I wasn't in the mood to read, and I did not read. And so I didn't read this at all in 2019. That's why I started it 2 years ago, and I'm going to finish it this month, okay? I am 107 pages into it that I'm probably going to skim over and read the annotations that I have in it, and then finally read the last, 300 pages or however long I have left in it. There's my bookmark. And this is the second book in the Raven Cycle by Maggie Stiefvater. And this series has 4 books. So I'm hoping that maybe next month I can just pick up the 3rd book and then in December finish the series. Because that's how I like to read series, and also I'm not starting any more series until I finish ones that I'm currently reading, and this is the only one that I'm in the middle of that is short enough to even be completed soon, because there are so many books in the Vampire Chronicles, and the other series I'm in the middle of is the Shadowhunter Chronicles, which I also have a number of books left to get to. So, anyway, The Dream Thieves is kind of hard to talk about, so I'm just going to talk about The Raven Boys, which is the first book. Is that what I said? The series is The Raven Cycle. The first book is the Raven Boys. Sorry, my hair keeps going in my mouth and like tickling my face. So I keep touching my cheek. Jeez, wow, I need to refresh my memory, clearly. But The Raven Boys has to do with Blue, who is not a psychic, but she lives with her mother and a bunch of like aunts and cousins who are psychics. She sort of does have this ability to enhance power around her and increase the power of the psychics around her. And she's been, it's been so long. She's been told her whole life that she is going to like kill her true love. She's gonna kill her true love if she kisses him. Good God. You know what? Screw it. She becomes involved in this quest to find this lost king, that's like a Welsh king, that if you find his body, he will like grant you a wish. And he, Blue, joins this quest with the Raven Boys, who have been on this quest. Good God, no. This is going terribly. Oh my lord. What a terrible description. I just feel like I should stop. So I'm going to. And I know that this book focuses a little bit more on Ronan, by the way. That's what I remember. Like, the title just gives me these images, thankfully, that have already happened in the book. So, I don't know what that was. I'm so sorry for that. Okay, and that's it. I've been filming for 50 minutes, and I'm like, that's it. So, I've said everything in the beginning that I needed to say, and if I need to include anything else or clarify anything else because of the way this ending is, I'm not sure. I'm all over the place now. Yeah, clarification and like other information that I need to say or include will be in the description. And again, I just want to say thank you for those of you who have been watching my videos and who subscribed and comments. I love comments. Feel free to follow me on other social media, mostly like Instagram and Letterboxd probably, or Goodreads. Although I kind of want to get out of using Goodreads and want to start using that Storygraph? Is that what it's called? It's really not a memorable name. It's very unfortunate, but I kind of want to start using that even though they're in beta right now. I kind of want to clean up my Goodreads shelves though, because you can import your Goodreads information onto, yeah, it's like Storygraph, I'm pretty sure. Anyway, thanks for watching. Tell me what you've been reading. Tell me if you plan on reading anything kind of spooky. I think there are a few other like audiobooks that I have that I would like to get to. Like, it'd be cool, but they're not like high priority. It's just these books that I've mentioned here that are. I know that I downloaded the Amityville Horror on Audible and the Legend of Sleepy Hollow, which is only like an hour and 18 minutes or something like that, so I'm probably gonna listen to that, but those like aren't priority or anything. So yeah, let me know what you are gonna be reading for spooky times and Halloween and October. I love October. I love this time of year. Really wish the heat would go away though. Okay, so again, oh, you know, I also have perfume here. It's the perfect time to read this, isn't it? It's quite short too. Am I just gonna add this? Maybe I'll get to perfume. We'll see. I'll probably continue to do videos that are like talking about the books that I've read recently. So I need to end this now. Thank you again for watching. And I do have a couple of videos in the works, but again, I'm dealing with storage space issues right now, so not sure exactly what's going to be up next. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.